you can handle the hard time that you're going through. You have lots of what I call past data. Times in your life that are like pieces of evidence that prove how strong, resilient, and adaptable you are. And it's important to believe that data rather than your inner critic. You know your inner critic? Yeah, it's that critical voice in your head that can convince you that you don't have the goods to deal with this adversity or big unexpected change that you're facing. It's that critical voice in your head that can lead you to being hard on yourself at the exact moment you need to be getting in your own corner. It's that critical voice in your head that can have you putting yourself down when you could be pumping yourself up. Isn't it amazing that we'll say things to ourselves that we would never dream of saying to someone else? Like right now, can you imagine turning to a person beside you and saying, "You're such a loser. When are you ever going to get it together?" Okay, maybe a few of you can picture that because they really are dead weight around here. But you know what I'm getting at. So when self-doubt sets in, and it will, it just will, you tell your inner critic to sit down, and then remember who you really are. Who you really are is that strong, resilient, and adaptable person who survived a global pandemic. Yep. I think one of the biggest silver linings of the pandemic is that it showed how strong, resilient, and adaptable we truly are. Especially adaptable. Especially adaptable. Like, I don't know if you've looked back on it all and connected the dots on that. If you haven't, that's okay, because I'm about to do it for you. So we went from that initial phase of fear, shock, confusion, and panic buying. Do you remember those days when you were like, am I going to have to start wiping my behind with coffee filters? And what shall I wear to the living room today? Right? And it was chaos. It was mayhem. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were washing our groceries. We were leaving our delivered packages outside for a few days to let the wind take the COVID away. Oh, and we were freaking out because we had to stay home for 2 weeks. Remember when we thought the pandemic was only going to be for 2 weeks? Good times. But eventually, sooner rather than later, we adjusted. We pivoted. And we got so good at social distancing and staying home that now doing the things we did before COVID kind of seem a little bit extraordinary, don't they? Right, over the past couple years, you've probably had some moments of amazement. Right there you were at the sporting event or at the concert, or you were on that trip and you thought to yourself, well, there would have been a time when this would have been a super spreader event. I mean, it probably still was, but you didn't care anymore. That's how adaptable we are. You know, the Great Resignation that affected pretty much every industry, every sector, was actually a testament to how adaptable we are, right? We went from, you want me to work at home, to, you want me to work at work? That's how adaptable we are. Right, before COVID, we didn't care that much about public health. Now if I sneeze or cough, people look at me like I'm waving a gun around. That's how adaptable we are. Like, you want to talk about adaptability. I got so good at living in a pandemic that now, at times, I find myself grieving all over again, just in reverse. Yeah, I miss how sitting at home all weekend watching Netflix made me a hero. I stayed home and saved lives. And I miss wearing a mask everywhere because it protected me from having to talk to people I knew in public. Right? Add sunglasses, you were literally in disguise. But I gotta say this, folks, I gotta say this. After seeing how some people wore their masks, I now understand why contraception fails. I get it now. Yeah, I miss not seeing people and showering infrequently and only wearing a bra when it was really, 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 really necessary. So thanks to the pandemic, you have gained another piece of past data that proves that you can do hard things. Yes, the pandemic was very tough, but turns out you're tougher. You have one more reason to bet on yourself. So, when your inner critic rears its ugly head, and it will, remember who you really are and turn that self-doubt into determination. Gain confidence from where you've been and apply it to where you're going. So, my mental health journey has been a very long one, and in 2023, the road got very bumpy. That spring, I fell into a clinical depression, and I suffered a really high level of anxiety, like we're talking insomnia and panic attacks. This led to a mental health crisis that summer, which led to 3 weeks of hospitalization, which then led to being admitted to the Homewood Health Center in Guelph. I was there completing a 9-week recovery treatment program. Homewood, I don't know if anyone is familiar with Homewood. Like I said, it's in Guelph. Homewood is privately owned. So there I was at a rather exclusive rehab facility. I felt famous. In fact, Homewood has welcomed celebrities such as Liz Taylor, Michael Jackson, and Justin Bieber. It was quite an adjustment being in rehab. The first time I went to the cafeteria, I asked for a wine list, and they gave me a very disapproving look. So the program that I was involved in at Homewood for those 9 weeks was focused on healing trauma responses. I had been diagnosed with what's called complex trauma, also known as big T trauma. Listen, I don't mean to brag. For those of you out there with regular trauma, I see you. So there were about 12 of us in that trauma unit. And I gotta say, the highlight of my time at Homewood was when one of our trauma patients went missing. Yeah, one day this guy just packed up his stuff and bolted. And the code yellow went off at about 8 o'clock at night, and all the Homewood staff went outside to search the grounds. Now, you would think that the search for this guy would be restricted to staff, right? Staff only. But that was not the case. It was a free-for-all. So there we were, a bunch of trauma patients out there looking for more trauma. That's right, I couldn't have a glass of Pinot Grigio, but I could go out into the dark of night and look for a dead body. KK. You know, a thought recently crossed my mind. I wonder if the whole thing was staged. Right, like a final test. If these trauma patients can look for a dead body in the dark and keep it together, they will gain immunity and be ready for the outside world. Welcome to Psychology Survivor. My mental health crisis at the time was not funny. It was not funny at all. But there are parts of it that are funny now. And when we were out there in the dark looking for that guy, I thought to myself, this will make some great material one day. So in the biz, we comedians have this common phrase or mantra, if you will, which is tragedy plus time equals comedy. In other words, with time, it's usually, I will emphasize that, it's usually much easier to see the humor in something. Now, something that sets us apart from others, when we comedians are in, the eye of the storm, when we're in the thick of it, we'll often think to ourselves, this will make some great material one day. So I recently learned this Buddhist phrase, which is, right now, it's like this. Right now, it's like this. This phrase teaches us, or perhaps more accurately, reminds us that every experience that we have, every emotion that we feel is fleeting. It's temporary. So when you're going through a hard time, or you're feeling a difficult emotion like sadness, grief, or anxiety, maybe just say to yourself, right now it's like this. Because eventually, inevitably, a new experience or a new emotion will come along and replace it. So when you get caught in that story that your circumstances are permanent, right? It's going to look like this, feel like this, be like this forever. When you get caught up in that negative story, maybe just remember what we say in comedy. Tragedy plus time equals comedy. In other words, with time, it's not going to look or feel as bad as it does right now. And there's a good chance you'll be laughing about it one day. And even though you're not a comedian, you're welcome to have that thought too. This will make some great material one day. So as I see it, thank goodness for the temporary nature of everything. Luckily, nothing stays the same. Listen, I know the impermanence of things can be difficult, inconvenient, or heartbreaking, but it does come in handy sometimes. Just like every other circumstance in our lives, the adversities we face don't last forever either. As the great writer Maya Angelou said, every storm runs out of rain.